Hello and welcome everybody. It's Kasey and Brad Wallace. We're here on the Portal to Ascension special interview.
Yeah, we're very excited to be here with you today as we continue to bring to you preliminary chats and little virtual coffee meetings with great guests and speakers at Neil Gar's Portal to Ascension, coming up, of course, in October in Irvine, California. We have the pleasure of speaking there as well, doing Julius and doing our presentations. And we're getting to know our fellow speakers, our fellow practitioners, and really the energy movers here on this Earth ship who are getting out and doing their thing. I always say we're not quite sure if we're crazy or stupid or what we're doing or whether we're brilliant at what we're doing, but we're getting everybody out there and allowing you a very safe space to come and meet people and intermingle with people, talk about your experiences, support your experiences, invite you into other people's experiences and let that inspire you as well, right?
Yeah, and that event itself is going to be in Irvine, California at the Atrium Hotel. And the gentleman that we're going to interview here and just start interviewing here in just a few minutes is going to be at that event.
Yeah.
And he's going to let us know exactly what he's going to be talking about.
Yeah, Justin's got a great background. He's a massive encyclopedia of information as well as his own intuitive gifts coming forth and blending possibilities for all of us. Before we get started with this interview, please check out the website, Portal to Ascension. You can get all kinds of information there on all of the speakers. Get your tickets, make your schedule ready for you, and let's get going. So Justin, thanks for being with us. How are you today?
Good. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Everybody, your whole name. Let's start right out.
Not your whole life story.
Your whole name and your website, Justin, right out of the gate. And then let's get into a conversation and let's let you talk about how everything got started for you, please.
Sure. So my name is Justin Deschamps, and my online portal is Stillness in the Storm. You can find me at stillnessinthestorm.com. And basically that project is one aspect of the work that I do. It's kind of like a storefront in a sense, because it lets people know like what I'm researching. I disseminate research materials, opinions, commentary, analysis. I put kind of everything through there. But the project is really about me revealing to the world either things that I'm researching in the moment, so you kind of get like to research them with me, or things that I have discovered that I think are important and trying to take stock of the situation we find ourselves in. So not only do I put information on there that is, I think, a good representation of the truth, and I'd be sure to try to disclose that, but I also put all sorts of other kinds of information on there, including mainstream media articles that some could label disinformation. Some people might say, well, why are you doing that, Justin? Don't you just want to tell us what the truth is and not have to let us discern or anything like that? Well, no, that's not what my mission is. My mission is not to tell you what the truth is. My mission is to provide you information and for all of us together to work together to mutually discover what the truth is. And then from that mutual foundation, work together to live the most ideal and fulfilling life possible. And that's ultimately the grander aspect of my work. I focus on what I call the great work. I also call it the restoration of the human family or world healing. And I have kind of 3 pillars that I like to focus on for that kind of everything I do falls under these pillars. It's law, psychology, and philosophy. And law are the fundamental rules that govern reality. And if life is like a game, which for all intents and purposes it kind of is, there's this direction we should be going in, and there's these rules we have to follow. And if we learn how to follow those rules, then just like any game, you get better at playing the game. Well, psychology is kind of like understanding the player. It's like, well, what actual tools do you have? That's to know thyself, psychology. And then philosophy is the dynamic use of everything. It's actually like the stuff you're actually doing in life at any given moment. You're constantly assessing meanings. You're constantly evaluating decisions based on what's most valuable, what isn't. And so by thinking about life in those kind of 3 pillar sense, then you can really get a really good foundation to pretty much everything, whether you're just trying to like heal yourself, you're trying to do research information, you're trying to talk to others and spread truthful information, or you're trying to work with others to ultimately try to make the world a better place. So that's a little spiel of what I'm all about.
You obviously, and you have a great energy of extreme intelligence about you as well. I'm getting a sense that probably the curiosity through your intelligence led you down rabbit holes of many things, and probably along that journey you found your own intuitiveness opening up and inner blending and all of this energy. In me trans-channeling a group named Julius loves to blend a lot of the science and spirituality kind of together. I think in our human component we have these dichotomies going on for ourselves. We have all these vantage points, some coming from the altered ego, some coming from the soul. And I think we're really finally starting to wake up, hopefully after eons of separating, science and spirituality, to understand that it's all the same energy field based on what we can understand. But I would love to go a little more personal, if I may, with you, with your permission. And please tell everybody how you got started on this. A little bit about your upbringing. Were you brought up in religion? How did you start to really get curious about what's out there and how everything works?
Well, I'm honored to share. Well, I'd say the kind of short answer is that in 2010, I discovered cures for cancer through researching Dr. Max Gerson, the Gerson therapy, who cured cancer in 1928 using juicing and detox methods. And at the time, I was a devout scientism follower. I was an atheist. I didn't believe in God or spirituality or anything like this. And I came from a science background, and I kind of figured, well, I know science. I can debunk things or whatnot. This sounds like BS. Let me just debunk this. And I dove into the material. I started reading it and researching it. And thankfully, because I'm more of an honest researcher than not, I actually did the reverse. I ended up proving it to myself. And then once that happened, I had what I call a conceptual crisis. My beliefs, my fundamental beliefs about the world that we live in started to break down, because those beliefs were the government would never do anything to hide or suppress information that would hurt people. And we live in a world where generally everybody's good, and we try to make things as harmonious and harmless as possible. When in reality, the more and more layers of the onion I started to peel back, I started to realize that wasn't the case at all. And from what I can understand from the psychology behind it, awakening is fundamentally a destructive process, at least at the beginning, because your beliefs form the reality that you live in. And if your beliefs work, if they agree with your experience, then you don't need to change them. But eventually they have to break down. So that's kind of how I started my awakening. In 2013, my partner at the time, Julian, we were doing a lot of research, and like I said in the beginning, we really wanted to engage in a dialogue and a collective process of truth sharing and discussion. And we decided that we wanted to start just putting our insights, our information, our opinions, and our research out there, and see what we could do as far as engaging the community. And that's what Stillness in the Storm began as basically just a short radio show about what things we were researching, and then that slowly evolved into what it is today. So a little bit of my background. I was raised in an agnostic family by two formerly very, what we might call dogmatic Roman Catholic parents. My father was raised Roman Catholic. My mother was raised Roman Catholic. And they didn't really appreciate the forced indoctrination that they experienced. And they decided to raise us in an agnostic capacity, which basically means that we will introduce these ideas to you, but it's up to you whether or not you want to do anything with it. Yeah. And for most of my early childhood, I actually had, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I had a real kind of like living relationship with an intelligence in the universe. I kind of just believed implicitly that the universe must be conscious, and that my life must itself be some kind of consciously led process of evolving me and growing and developing my nature. And I believed really early on that, if I could just set my mind to something, I could accomplish anything. And I kind of held that belief up until around the age of 10 or 11, when I encountered formal religion. And I had a friend at the time, he was a Protestant, and we were discussing, the basis of the religion. And some of what I heard as the foundational myths, it just didn't make sense to my heavily science-infused mind. You know, I should say that my parents and my father they were very into science. I grew up with Star Trek. I grew up with Nova. I was watching PBS all the time. I mean, my best memories are of learning about how the world works. I love that kind of stuff. So I've always been a kind of deep thinker, scientist, researcher kind of a person. And understanding human nature was something I always was very interested in, partially because I just didn't get people when I was younger. It was like, why are the people doing what they're doing? It doesn't make sense. So later in life, I ended up developing my more atheistic bent because I encountered religion, and as many people do, it didn't make sense to my more scientific, rational, logical mind. So I just threw the baby out with the bathwater and said, it all must be BS. And let's see. And then eventually, through a wake-up experience later on in life, like I mentioned earlier, I reactivated my spirituality, my mystical leanings. And what's interesting for me personally is I would describe myself as a maverick. And what I mean by that is I am somebody who doesn't necessarily follow the lead of anybody. I tend to kind of like to do stuff on my own. And, you know, it's not because I think I'm like the best thing since sliced bread or anything, but it's just how I personally get the most out of my experience and what I want to understand and live my life as. So since then, I've developed what I like to call a comprehensive model for existence. So it's not just science, it's not just spirituality, it's both. It's the more and more information that I absorb, the more I can use the power of my consciousness to synthesize that information into representational systems or knowledge that is accurately reflective of reality. And yeah, that basically leads us to where we are today. So.
That's great. Thank you for that. I love it because I think what I have come to find in us being our practitioner work and me getting out and presenting Julius to everybody is many people who consider themselves atheists. I think that they're in a large number of that category is that they don't believe in God in the traditional sense that religion has presented God. But almost everybody, even especially the scientific mind, will agree there's an energy out there. You know, there's an energy that moves everything. Or Julius describes the best word that they can say for God is thought, because everything comes from a thought. So it's thought energy. And then we take fractalized versions of thought and expand that thought by the way we perceive it and the way we feel about it. So when I hear somebody say I'm atheist, but I know that there's an energy out there, and I'm like, okay, well then you're atheist against the traditional presentation of God, which I agree. I don't agree with that either. Brad came out of a pretty strict religion, and what I say worked his way out of that mess and into, you know, a much broader minded state. Yeah,
and I find it fascinating on your end that you have developed comprehensively a system, so to speak, that works for you. And your scientific analogy has led you to what you're doing in your life right now. And if people want to follow that and get involved in that and be part of that, hey, more power to them. But you're still going to do what you're going to do, and you're going to continue to put that information out there and let everybody decide what to do with it. Is that correct in what I'm thinking I'm hearing?
Yeah, you got right to it. It's astounding, actually. I say that because, you know, I've been more public with this type of work since 2013. And I consistently get, you know, not all the time, but I'd say, I don't know, maybe 1 to 5% of the feedback I receive is people being really upset with me because I'm sharing conflicting information. And I seem to be a disinfo agent. And it's because they want me to tell them what is real. They want me to tell them what the truth is. And as I described earlier, I don't do that. So, So it also puts me in an interesting position, because then I also kind of get the label of, oh, well, you're just an unbiased reporter. And in a certain sense, yes, that is kind of what I do. But no, I have an opinion, and I will give you my opinion, and I make that very clear in my work, whether it's in videos or presentations or writing. So yeah, like you said, I mean, I think as far as I can tell, looking at more of, I guess, from a psychological perspective, what really makes awakening empowering for the individual, it's not dogma necessarily, although at the beginning, all knowledge has to pass through that external mechanism so it can become internal. But the thing that makes it internal, the thing that makes it yours, is that you take that information and then you start to digest it and pull into it and use your own powers of discernment. And in the process, it becomes your knowledge, not just somebody else's.
It's the perspective. Like you said, your perspective creates your reality. We always say that actually truth is the way something feels to you.
Truth is the way it feels.
So everything has an aspect of truth to it, because somebody out there believes it's true, or they wouldn't be presenting it, as a truth. It's deciphering mechanisms of levels of consciousness, open-minded state, judgment, and things like that move us through pathways of versions of truth. Truth is expandable, which is a great thing. But I also love, Justin, from what I perceive, from my perception, is that you're in a space of allowing for people. And that is a higher field of consciousness. So I love that. I love that, because not a lot of people out there are just hammering their message down, and it's pretty much their way. And like you said, you kind of work your way in that, we feel, and then you start to open up a little bit, it's like, I really don't care if you follow me or not. I mean, do your super cool stuff, but maybe what I have to say might inspire you to think about something you hadn't thought of before. I mean, I think that's what we engage with each other about. I want to know how you process thought. How do you, Justin, see this? This is interesting to me. I don't see it that way, but maybe I will now that you pointed that out. You're my runner, for me. Or maybe I'm back, to you. And I also get a really great sense in this very short period of time of connecting with you that I love your energy, from your human side, you have a warmth to you. You're not cold and calloused and, classroom principal,
It's
energy.
my way or the highway, right?
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So, Justin, tell everybody you're going to be doing your presentation at the Portal of Ascension. But besides you providing a platform for an array of information for people to choose from, so you got the little smorgasbord out there. You're letting everybody assimilate a lot of this stuff. But do you have workshops? Do you have classes? How do people get engaged with your work?
Sure. At the moment, much of my work is in a written format. I actually have a project that I'm developing right now that is going to be much more hands-on, where I'm going to be doing a lot of online material, producing presentations, doing webinars. Something that I personally derive a lot of benefit from is the face-to-face interaction, the human interaction. And it can be fun being a keyboard warrior, but I really like to get with people. So right now there is a lot of stuff on hold, partially because the censorship has just really kind of taken a major hit on the more nuts and bolts business side of things. I do this full time. If it wasn't for donations, affiliate sales, advertising revenue, I couldn't do what I do. And with the shadow banning, that's taken a large kind of pulled the floor out from under me a little bit earlier this year. So I had to kind of put a lot of these things on hold to shore that back up. Thankfully, I'm back up in that position basically now. And I'm going to start to do a whole lot more online content, producing webinars, videos, and discussion groups. Something I plan on doing probably by the end of this year is doing, it maybe sound old school, but kind of like a weekly call where people get on the phone. It's very personal. It's not any kind of technology, fancy stuff. And we just sit and talk about what's happening in people's lives. How are you processing this truth? How are you understanding this? What does this actually mean for you and your personal life story and your narrative? How you can, contemplating this. And I really liked what you said earlier, which, and this is something I plan on discussing at Portal to Ascension, which is that, the collective truth-seeking process is really, really important and helpful. And there's a reason why. It's because the kind of strategic reality that we live in on this world is that most of us have a lot of trauma, primal wounds, baggage, all sorts of stuff. It comes from all sorts of different places. And what that does psychologically is it tends to limit our thinking. And it makes us kind of see things only from one set of glasses most of our lives. And you kind of like forget that they're even on your face sometimes. So just discussing things with another person allows you to see through things through their eyes if you're truly open to that process. And once you start to build those muscles and skills, it enhances your life across the board. So what I intend on discussing at Portal to Ascension, I'm actually kind of in the process of figuring out, because for me, I got a lot of things I could talk about, and I like to try to feel out and intuitively guide what is the most needed by the collective at this time, and kind of transmit that information, because obviously it's greater to pour into a receiving cup than to try to pour into a full cup. So there's two kind of things I'm thinking of this regard. I may do a talk on the assault on relationships and love and pair bonding, which I've been discussing, researching a whole lot over the past year. Or I may do a talk on what I'm going to be discussing as a workshop at Dimensions of Disclosure here next week in Ventura, California, which is basically the fundamental aspects of the psychology that we have, why our lives tend to get hijacked by negative thinking and bad attitudes, and how to turn the ship around and give yourself the tools to live your life in a happy, positive, uplifting, cheerful way.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. Talking, like you said, reading the audience, understanding, kind of what everybody is open to or looking for is part of your gift, our gifts, and loving to, and actually everybody has that gift. Again, just getting up there and being the inspiration, for everything. Brad and I do Julius and this network full-time too, so we totally support, we're in the same energy arena as you, which actually puts a whole nother flare of the rocket fuel behind what we do. We have a great passion for it. You have a great passion for what you're doing. I always say either we're crazy or we're brave, to get out there and help move mountains. Really, they're mountains. I mean, everybody's limitations and everybody's fears is the mountain, in front of them.
And within that fear, what has happened through the ages is the masses have been able to, or a select few have been able to manipulate the fear to control the masses. And the masses are really starting to get that dimmer switch turned just a little bit, because quite honestly, everyone's kind of fed up with it.
Yeah.
And they really don't know why. They know that there is something in their insides are telling them that there really is something else out there. Do I dare become brave enough to go find something or listen to something? And it is speakers like you and the whole collective that are opening that door and that window so everybody else can understand it and see it. Do you find when you speak at events that there are getting to be more and more people that are, like I said, beginning to walk out of that dark room that they're in?
I do. As a matter of fact, I'd say one of the things that characterizes almost every event I've been to is that it enlivens people. It really makes them feel alive. And one of the things I constantly hear when I go to these events is, I was waking up and I was alone, and I couldn't talk to anybody, and I didn't know what I was going to do. But then I came here and I heard that other people were into these things and open-minded, and it just gave me this huge sense of relief and connection. And, the energy that can quicken somebody's spirit, to use that term, is just profound at one of these events. So, I think there's definitely something very healing and beneficial to coming to these events that everybody should try at some point in their life.
And this Portal to Ascension with Neil it's pretty serious stuff. I mean, we do events like you. We do kind of categorically different types of events. Some are kind of lighthearted. fair type categories, you know, where you got the so-and-so people out there and the so-and-so people out there and a few pretty intense speakers. Neil's is pretty intense. This event is for people who are, I want to say there's people who collect information, stick it on the shelf, and will use it at a later time. Those are the people just kind of starting to come in. And then there's people who are going to be going to the event like Neil's. They're starting to really move through their experience. They're like, okay, I don't need so much of the fluff stuff, which is lovely because fluff invites, but I'm ready to get down to some serious thought, some serious alignment with myself.
I want to sit down and have conversation with people that are going to give me information about stuff that I'm hearing about and stuff that I'm thinking about, and have an actual intelligent conversation about that. And even if you sit in the audience and listen to what the people are talking about, it's some pretty serious information.
It is. It's awesome.
That is, folks, all of this stuff is going on the planet. This is not stuff that we're making up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going on. So if you're not aware of it, or you don't think that it's really real, you need to come down and you need to listen and sit in the audience and rub shoulders with everybody and actually partake in everything that's going on. And this gentleman right here is a fabulous runner.
Yeah.
I'm going to call him a runner.
Yeah.
He's a runner for people.
Yeah.
So tell us, Justin, how do people get a hold of you? How would they if they were interested in getting a hold of you prior to the event, how would they get a hold of you?
Like personally, like send me a message kind of thing?
Some of the social, you have social media, your website, how would people get in touch with you if they were interested in getting in touch with you?
Sure. Well, my website, that's a good place to start, stillnessinthestorm.com. I also have various social media outlets. On Twitter, there's the main Stillness in the Storm Twitter, which is @SITS, SITS, SHOW. And then I have a personal Twitter where I post more, I guess what we could call more like philosophic type of information, spiritual information. I like to give a lot of it's kind of like a personal challenge for me. I'm going to try to present the most dense truth, high-level truth that I possibly can in the little bubble that Twitter gives me. So I put that out there. That's on my first name, Justin, the word stillness, so @JustinStillness. And then if you want to message me or email me or whatnot, you can send me an email at justin.deschamps@stillnessinthestorm.com.
Justin, we look forward to seeing you at the event. We'll have our booth there at the event. We'll grab you as you're walking by and do another little quick interview and get you all bolstered and things like that. So, but we want to thank you very much.
I got another question. I got to ask you.
Fire.
I got to ask you, man.
Fire.
Yeah.
In all this research that you're doing, you've come to, you started out at a very young age from a very controlled environment, and yet your scientific mind and your basis for the pursuit of understanding has overridden all of this controlling environment that has basically tried to hold you back, yet you've emerged out of it, continually asking yourself questions and searching for answers to certain things that are going on in the world. Are there things going on in today's world, as far as you're concerned, that human beings need to pay attention to? I'm not asking for your outright advice on that, but what I'm saying is, are there certain things that you're beginning to recognize that people should be aware of?
That's a great question. I would say, I suppose at a personal level, It's not necessarily related to this time in history, but it's just a general good thing to do, maybe, is to become aware of yourself. One of the interesting things that I discovered in psychology and philosophy and spirituality is that the mystery of the self is arguably one of the most mysterious things out there. I mean, if you think about it, do you really know who you are? No, not really. What's interesting is that when you go and try new experiences, not only are you having that new experience, but you're also reflecting on you experienced, what you responded to when you're having that experience. So literally, when you're exploring anything new, you're not only exploring the thing itself, but you're also exploring yourself because you react to it. So I would say, developing self-awareness and the ability to understand basically the machine that is the consciousness of you, because when I say machine, I don't mean it is mechanistic, but I may mean it is governed by rules. It's not just a random fog of concepts. There are things happening. There are cosmic universal laws operating in your own being. And when you learn how to understand how those work, you give yourself an incredible leg up in just everything in life that comes with that. And then I guess a more maybe worldly sense, I'd say one of the things that I think is a big indication of positive change is actually what's happening with the Epstein situation right now. And just let me get a little context to that. So Epstein, he was convicted billionaire pedophile, served a very brief stint in the early 2000s, was rearrested after the Miami Herald started to alert some other aspects of his case, and he was set to go to trial in June of next year. Well, there was all sorts of people implicated through his pedophile plane called the Lily Express. Bill Clinton, all sorts of people. Even Trump was on the list, although it came out later that apparently he wasn't actually engaged in any illicit activity. So what happened is this man is arguably, and the situation around him is arguably one of the biggest linchpins in finally blowing the lid off of the pedophile, human trafficking, deep state, satanic, underbelly of our world power structure. And this man was killed after he attempted to commit suicide, which is unheard of. So if you actually look at the details of what a suicide is, and this is the main point, if you look at the reaction, we have something I think that is unparalleled happening in history. That the idea of people being killed off to cover things up is not new. That's been happening for a long time. But the notion that that is happening is generally not accepted in the mainstream by the public. However, as far as I can tell, this is one of the first instances where it is generally and widely accepted that the official story of Epstein's death is not true. I just posted an article, I believe it was yesterday, a poll where only 29% of the people polled believed the official story. And mainstream media proponents and people are actively talking about cover-up and conspiracy. So this is one of the first major, massive media events where the notion of actual deep state conspiracy and deep state actors is a prominent feature, and it's being openly discussed. It's being presented to the people. And as far as I can tell, this is a good indication, because what this means is that the concept of conspiracy, the concept of a deep state, is not being suppressed. People aren't just turning away from it like, from a disgust response. Now they're actually entertaining it. Now it's actually kind of becoming cool and hip to question the official story. So I think this is a paradigm shift in the collective consciousness, and I have no doubt we'll see more of these changes coming in the future.
You know what? I agree with you 100% in that, and I would like to add to that I believe that it is because of events like, for instance, Portal to Ascension, other events that are out there that are going to open the door, as I said earlier, to the people who really want to find out what's really going on in the world. This is something that has become fabulous in my use of words. This is what the internet has certainly afforded all of us as human beings to be part of, is the ongoing conversation. No matter which side you sit on, if you're not making accusatory verbiage one way or another, but if you start dealing with facts, it's amazing that we even have this type of conversation in today's world.
Yeah.
And how short that has, how fast that has happened in relatively a short period of time.
But also with programming like yours, Justin, so you talk about stillness in the storm. Joyous that I channel talks about staying centered amidst distraction.
Right.
Which means being able to go to clarity of thought amongst the bombardment of distraction, trying to get you away from your inner thoughts and buying into the thoughts that they want you to be having. And this is, like you said, that state of self-awareness. Julius talks about if you took away all of the identifying markers in your life that came from your exterior self, your family, the groups you belong to, your community, your religion, your ethnicity, your age group, your sexual preferences, all of that, which tends to give us our identity, or like you said, your traumas and your pains and your suffering. How would we know who we were? How would we know who we were without our fears? And that means that we have to go in and recognize the way we authentically feel about our thoughts or what's going on and what is that saying, about us, and making decisions to expand, from there. Because if we're just expanding around all the external stuff, we're just contributing to the hologram and the storm and the distraction. Also, what I love about you, I think already, is, again, I want to support this very calm, beautiful intelligence about you. And people are looking for that, I call that stableness, that stillness. You're not, it doesn't appear to me that you are reactive to anything as far as the information goes. That you respond, you take the time to contemplate and respond, and you're teaching people how to do that. So just by being who you are contributing massively to the state of self-awareness for people through your demonstration. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm honored to be so received.
Justin's going to be at the Portal to Ascension event.
Portal to Ascension.
Along with us.
In Irvine, California.
Yeah, we get to sit down with Justin. We're going to invite Justin to come by and say hi. Maybe, I don't know, buy you a beer or a cup of tea or something while we're there. Get to know you a little bit. Justin, tell everybody one more time your website and how to get more information about you, please.
Sure, the website's stillnessinthestorm.com, and that's the best place probably to see everything I do. You can also check out my personal Twitter at Just in Stillness on Twitter.
Wow, great interview.
Great interview. Thanks everybody for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to give us the opportunity to pre-interview you before this event and be able to feel your energy and rub shoulders with you, so to speak.
Yeah, to all of our viewers out there, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. This is brought to you by Xpnsion Network, Xpnsion Network.com. And you can see us on Roku, Fire TV, Amazon, and all the social media platforms. So get the word out there. Come to see these programmings. Visit Justin's website. Get engaged with him. Get your mind moving. Get your storm calmed down. Get interrelatable to your own self and to everybody else. It's another mere conscious reflective action of knowing oneself. And once you embrace it from that perspective, hopefully you will find much more joy and happiness in your life, right? All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back with you soon with our next interview.